How does a single night's innocent reunion with my ex turn the happiest day of my life into the start of my public downfall? Why did my husband let the silence answer for him, gathering proof in the shadows while I believed I owned the story? When the door finally closed behind me, I realized too late what lawful revenge really means. The champagne bubbles felt flat against my tongue as I watched Jonas across the reception hall, his genuine smile lighting up conversations with our guests. My new husband looked so content, so perfectly satisfied with our fairy tale wedding. But something restless clawed at my chest, a hunger for excitement that our perfect day couldn't quite satisfy. "Irene, you look absolutely radiant." Marina Silva squeezed my arm, her voice pitched high with excitement. "I can't believe you actually went through with it. Marriage seems so final." I forced a laugh, adjusting the delicate straps of my reception dress. "It's not a prison sentence, Marina. It's just the next chapter." But even as I said it, my phone buzzed against my clutch. Luke's name appeared on the screen, and my heart did that familiar flutter it always did when he reached out. "Congratulations, beautiful. Saw the photos online. You look incredible." "I'm in town tonight, staying at the Meridian if you want to catch up, just to talk, of course." "Who's texting you on your wedding night?" Marina peered over my shoulder, her eyes widening when she saw the name. "Oh my God, Luke. You're Luke. What does he want?" "Nothing important," I said quickly, but my fingers were already typing back. "Thanks. Maybe for a few minutes. Just to catch up." The response came immediately. "Room 412. I'll be in the bar until midnight." I glanced across the room at Jonas, who was deep in conversation with his brother Nate about some teaching conference. He looked so settled, so predictable. When was the last time he'd made my pulse race like this? "You're not seriously thinking about meeting him," Marina whispered, but her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Are you?" "It's just closure," I heard myself saying. "We never really got to talk after everything ended. It would be healthy, right? Modern couples should be secure enough for their partners to have friendships with exes." Marina nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. Jonas should trust you completely. If he doesn't, that says more about him than you." I looked at Jonas again. He caught my eye and smiled, raising his champagne flute in a small toast just for me. The gesture should have melted my heart, but instead, it felt suffocating. "I'm going to freshen up," I announced to our table. "Be right back." But instead of heading to the bathroom, I found myself slipping out the side entrance of the venue. The October air was crisp against my skin as I called an Uber, my hands shaking slightly as I typed in the Meridian Hotel's address. Just for an hour, I told myself. Just to get this out of my system. The hotel bar was dimly lit and sophisticated, exactly the kind of place Luke would choose. I spotted him immediately at a corner table, looking as devastatingly handsome as ever in his perfectly tailored suit. His dark hair was slightly longer than I remembered, and when he smiled at me, it was like being transported back to when we were 25, and the world felt full of infinite possibilities. "Irene." He stood to greet me, his hands warm on my shoulders as he kissed my cheek. "You look absolutely stunning. Marriage suits you." "Thank you." I slid into the booth across from him, hyper-aware of how the silk of my dress felt against my skin, how his eyes tracked my movements. "I can't stay long. Jonas will notice I'm gone." "Of course." Luke signaled the bartender for another round. "I just wanted to see you, to congratulate you properly, and maybe—" He leaned forward, his voice dropping to that intimate tone that used to make my knees weak. "To make sure you're really happy. You seemed a little uncertain in some of those wedding photos." "I'm perfectly happy," I said automatically, but the words felt hollow. "Are you?" Because the Irene I knew was wild and spontaneous. She traveled to Prague on a whim and danced on tables and made every day feel like an adventure. This woman I'm looking at seems constrained. The observation stung because it felt true. When had I become someone who planned every detail and worried about appearances. When had excitement become something I had to schedule? People grow up, Luke. We can't all stay 25 forever. Says who? He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. You're 32, not 92. You should be living your best life, not settling for safe. The touch sent electricity up my arm. This was what had been missing. This spark, this feeling of being truly seen and desired. Jonas was wonderful, stable, reliable. But when was the last time he'd looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the world? I should go, I said, but I didn't move to leave. Have one drink with me, for old time's sake. Tell me about your non-profit work. I heard you're changing the world one event at a time. One drink turned into 3, 1 hour turned into 4. We talked about everything. My work coordinating charity events, his consulting business, the places we'd traveled, the dreams we'd shared. Luke had a way of making me feel like the most interesting person in the room, hanging on every word, laughing at my stories, making me remember who I used to be before I became someone's wife. I have something to show you, he said eventually, pulling out his phone. Remember that photo from Cabo? We huddled together, looking at his screen, our heads close enough that I could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn when we were together. The photo was from a trip we'd taken 2 years into our relationship, both of us tan and laughing on a beach at sunset. We were good together, he said softly. Really good. Luke, I know you're married now, I respect that, but seeing you tonight, God, Irene, you're even more beautiful than I remembered, and I can tell you're not completely happy. I can see it in your eyes. That's not true, I protested, but my voice lacked conviction. Come upstairs with me, just to talk more privately. I want to show you something. Remember that story you wrote about the street musician in Barcelona? I kept it all this time. I should have said no. Should have called another Uber and gone back to my reception, back to my new husband who was probably wondering where I'd disappeared to. Should have remembered that I'd made vows just hours earlier. Instead, I found myself following Luke to the elevator, my heart pounding with a mixture of guilt and excitement that I hadn't felt in years. His room was elegant and spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He poured us wine from a bottle he'd apparently ordered earlier, and we sat on the couch, looking through his phone at more old photos. Trips we'd taken, friends we'd had, the life we'd built together before it all fell apart. I made a mistake letting you go, he said, setting down his wineglass. I was scared of commitment, scared of being vulnerable. But losing you taught me what really matters. Luke, don't. I'm not asking you to leave him. I'm just saying, maybe we could be friends again, real friends. Maybe we could see each other sometimes, just to talk, just to remember who we used to be. He moved closer on the couch and I should have pulled away, should have stood up, left the room, called Jonas. Instead, I let him take my hand, let him trace circles on my palm with his thumb. You're married, I whispered, more to remind myself than him. I know, and I'm not trying to complicate your life. I miss you. I miss us. Don't you miss how we used to make each other feel? The honest answer was yes. I missed feeling desired and unpredictable and alive. I missed being with someone who challenged me instead of just accepting me. I missed the version of myself that existed when I was with him. But I also knew this was dangerous territory. I was married now. I'd made promises. I had responsibilities. I should go, I said for the 3rd time that night. But again, I didn't move. Stay a little longer, please. Just until you finish your wine. So I stayed. We talked more, laughed more, and when he kissed me, soft and tentative at first, then deeper when I didn't pull away, I let myself pretend, just for a moment, that I was 25 again and the world was full of possibilities. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I finally extracted myself from Luke's room, my lips swollen from kissing, my hair messed up, my dress wrinkled. We hadn't gone further than kissing and touching, but it had been enough to make me feel guilty and exhilarated in equal measure. "This was," I started to say as we stood by his door. "Perfect," he finished. "Just like old times. We should do this again soon." "Luke, I can't. I'm married now. This was just closure, a goodbye." He smiled that knowing smile that had always driven me crazy. "We'll see." The Uber ride home felt eternal. I tried to fix my hair and smooth my dress, rehearsing explanations in my head. I'd tell Jonas I'd felt overwhelmed and needed some air, that I'd gone for a walk and lost track of time, that I'd run into an old college friend and got caught up talking. But when I finally used my key to open our apartment door, the place was completely dark and silent. No Jonas waiting up for me, no angry confrontation, no questions about where I'd been, just emptiness. I called out his name, but got no response. His side of the bed was undisturbed. His phone charger was gone from the nightstand. The wedding gift bags we'd brought home earlier were still sitting by the door, unopened. It was like he'd never come home at all. I checked my phone, expecting angry texts or missed calls, but there was nothing. Complete radio silence. As I stood in our empty apartment, still wearing my reception dress and smelling faintly of Luke's cologne, a cold realization washed over me. Jonas hadn't needed to confront me or fight with me or demand explanations. He'd simply left. And somehow, that was so much worse than any argument would have been. I woke up alone in our king-sized bed, sunlight streaming through the curtains I'd forgotten to close. For a moment, I felt disoriented. Where was Jonas? Then the events of the previous night came flooding back, and my stomach clenched with a mixture of guilt and defiance. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my mother and a string of texts from Marina asking how my adventure had gone, but still nothing from Jonas. I padded to the kitchen in my silk pajamas, hoping to find some sign that he'd come home while I was sleeping. But his coffee mug was clean in the dishwasher, his work bag was gone from its usual spot by the door, and the newspaper was still sitting outside our apartment. "This is ridiculous," I told myself, as I made coffee with shaking hands. "He's probably just being dramatic. He'll be back tonight, and we'll talk this through like adults." But as I sat at our breakfast bar, staring at my phone, I couldn't shake the image of Luke's smile, the way he'd made me feel so alive and desirable. Had I really done anything so terrible? We'd talked, we'd kissed a little. It wasn't like I'd had an affair. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "Girl, you've been radio silent since last night. Did you go through with it? Call me immediately." I found myself dialing her number before I'd fully decided what to say. "Oh my God, finally!" Marina's voice was breathless with excitement. "Tell me everything. Was it amazing? Did you feel that old spark?" "Marina, I think I made a mistake." "What do you mean? What happened?" I gave her the abbreviated version, meeting Luke at the hotel, talking for hours, the kissing, coming home to find Jonas gone. "Wait, he just left? Without even confronting you? That's so passive-aggressive. What kind of husband doesn't fight for his wife?" "Maybe he's just processing. I mean, it was our wedding night and I disappeared for 4 hours. To have a conversation with an old friend. You're allowed to have a past, Irene. You're allowed to have closure. If Jonas can't handle you being a complex, multifaceted woman with a history, then maybe he's not the right man for you." Marina had a way of reframing things that made my choices sound empowering rather than destructive. "You really think so?" "Absolutely. You're 32 years old. You shouldn't have to pretend you've never loved anyone else or that you don't have needs and desires. A secure man would trust you completely." "But I did kiss Luke." "So? You kissed an ex-boyfriend. You didn't sleep with him. You didn't run away together. You came home to your husband, and instead of being there to talk it through, he ran away like a child." By the time I hung up with Marina, I was feeling more justified in my actions and more annoyed with Jonas for his dramatic exit. Where was he anyway? At his mother's house, probably, telling her all about his terrible new wife. I spent the morning cleaning our apartment and doing laundry, half expecting Jonas to walk through the door at any moment. But noon came and went with no word from him. Finally, I swallowed my pride and called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. Jonas, it's me. I know you're upset about last night, and I understand why. Can we please just talk? I'm at home whenever you're ready to have an adult conversation about this. I tried to keep my tone conciliatory, but even I could hear the slight edge of irritation creeping in. He was the one being unreasonable here, disappearing without explanation instead of communicating like a grown-up. When he still hadn't called back by evening, I decided to take control of the narrative. I posted a carefully curated Instagram story, a photo of our wedding flowers, with the caption, "Still glowing from the most perfect day, so grateful for everyone who celebrated with us, now settling into married life and all its beautiful imperfections. Nancha newlyweds, Nancha's blessed, Larshaf real talk." The responses were immediate and supportive. Friends and family members hearted the post and commented about how radiant I'd looked, how lucky Jonas was, how excited they were for our future together. But I noticed that Jonas's family members, his mother Rosa, his brother Nate, didn't interact with the post at all. Monday morning brought a new challenge. At work, my colleague Jessica approached my desk with a concerned expression. "Hey, Irene, someone sent this to me and I thought you should see it." She handed me her phone and my blood ran cold. It was a video, clearly taken by someone at the hotel bar Saturday night, showing me and Luke deep in conversation, our heads close together, his hand covering mine on the table. Where did this come from? Someone posted it in one of those local gossip groups on Facebook. The caption says, "Spotted, local non-profit coordinator getting cozy with mystery man just hours after her wedding." "I'm sorry, hun. I thought you should know it's circulating." My hands were shaking as I handed back her phone. "It's not what it looks like. He's just an old friend. We were catching up." "I'm sure it's innocent," Jessica said, but her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. "I just thought you'd want to get ahead of it before it spreads further." But it was too late for that. By lunchtime, 3 more people had approached me about the video. My boss, Margaret, called me into her office for a quick chat about maintaining professional boundaries and how my personal life reflected on our organization. "I'm not saying you did anything wrong," Margaret said carefully, "but our donors can be conservative and we depend on their trust. Maybe just keep a lower profile for a while." I left work early, claiming a headache that wasn't entirely fabricated. The video had been viewed hundreds of times and shared in multiple local Facebook groups. The comments ranged from supportive, "She's allowed to have friends," to vicious, "What kind of woman abandons her new husband on their wedding night?" At home, I poured myself a large glass of wine and called my mother. "Irene, honey, I've been worried sick. Jonas called yesterday asking if you were here, and he sounded so upset. What's going on?" "Mom, did you see the video that's going around?" "What video?" "Oh, sweetheart, what video?" I explained the situation, downplaying the kissing and emphasizing the innocent nature of my conversation with Luke. But even as I spoke, I could hear how weak my justification sounded. "Irene, please tell me you didn't... on your wedding night." "I didn't do anything wrong. I had a conversation with an old friend. That's it. If Jonas can't handle that, then maybe we have bigger problems in our marriage. Honey, I love you, but you have to understand how this looks. You disappeared from your own wedding reception to meet another man at a hotel. Of course Jonas is hurt." "So you're taking his side too?" "I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying, maybe you should focus on fixing things with your husband instead of defending your right to have coffee with your ex-boyfriend." After I hung up, I felt more isolated than ever. Everyone seemed to be missing the point. I wasn't some cheating wife sneaking around behind my husband's back. I was a modern woman who refused to pretend she'd never had a life before marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from Luke. "Saw the video online. Hope I didn't get you in trouble." You looked beautiful Saturday night. Let me know if you need someone to talk to. Against my better judgment, I found myself typing back, "Thanks. It's been a rough few days. People are so judgmental. Want to grab coffee and talk about it? I'm a good listener." I stared at the message for a long time. Meeting Luke again would be adding fuel to the fire, but I was so tired of being judged and criticized and treated like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. Maybe tomorrow. I'll let you know. I'll be here whenever you need me. You deserve better than this, Irene. That night, Jonas finally came home. I heard his key in the lock around 10 p.m. and felt a rush of relief mixed with apprehension. Finally, we could talk this through like adults. But when he walked into our bedroom, he didn't look angry or hurt. He looked cold, distant, like he was looking right through me. "Jonas, thank God, I've been so worried. Where have you been?" "At my mother's." His voice was flat, emotionless. "We need to talk about Saturday night. I know how it looked, but..." "I don't want to hear your explanations, Irene." He pulled a pillow and blanket from our closet. "I'll be sleeping in the guest room." "What? Jonas, come on, don't be ridiculous. It was just a conversation with an old friend." He paused in the doorway, finally looking directly at me. A 4-hour conversation that ended at 3 a.m. in his hotel room, on our wedding night. "How did you..." "The hotel has security cameras in the hallways. Timestamps don't lie." My mouth went dry. "You had me investigated." "I didn't have to. The video was pretty clear about where you went and when you came back." He shifted the blanket under his arm. "I'm not going to argue with you about this, Irene. I'm not going to beg you to choose me over him. I'm just going to figure out what comes next." "What's that supposed to mean?" But he was already walking down the hall, leaving me alone in our bedroom with the sinking realization that this wasn't going to blow over as easily as I'd hoped. I lay awake most of the night, replaying the conversation and trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. By morning, I'd convinced myself that Jonas was overreacting and that time would help him see reason. I was wrong about that too. The video had legs. By Wednesday, it had been shared in 17 different Facebook groups, and someone had posted it on TikTok with the caption, "Wedding night wife ditches, husband for ex at hotel bar." The TikTok version had over 50,000 views and counting. I tried to ignore it, focusing on work and pretending everything was normal. But everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me, whispered conversations that stopped when I approached, pitying looks from co-workers who'd seen the footage. "Maybe you should take some time off," Margaret suggested during our morning staff meeting. "Let this blow over." "I'm not hiding from gossip," I said firmly. "I did nothing wrong, and I won't be shamed for having a conversation with an old friend." But even as I said it, I could see the skeptical looks around the conference table. These people had worked with me for 3 years. They knew I was dedicated and professional. Why couldn't they give me the benefit of the doubt? After the meeting, I locked myself in my office and called Marina. "This is getting out of hand," I told her. "People are acting like I committed murder." "Because they're jealous," Marina said immediately. "You're living authentically while they're all stuck in their boring, conventional lives. They can't stand seeing a woman who refuses to be controlled." "My boss wants me to take time off." "See? They're trying to punish you for not conforming to their narrow definition of how a wife should behave. This is exactly the kind of patriarchal bullshit that keeps women trapped in loveless marriages." Marina always knew exactly what to say to make me feel empowered instead of ashamed. "You really think so?" "I know so. And honestly, if Jonas can't handle you being a complex, independent woman, then maybe this marriage isn't meant to be. You deserve someone who celebrates your spirit, not someone who tries to dim it." That afternoon, I decided to take control of the narrative. I posted a longer Instagram statement. "I've been hesitant to address the gossip circulating about my personal life, but I think it's important to speak my truth. Yes, I had coffee with an old friend on Saturday night. Yes, he happened to be an ex-boyfriend. No, I don't think I owe anyone an apology for that. I believe in honest, open relationships where partners trust each other enough to maintain friendships with people from their past. I believe in marriages strong enough to withstand a simple conversation between old friends. I believe women shouldn't have to choose between being wives and being whole, complex human beings with rich histories and meaningful connections. To those supporting me through this difficult time, thank you. To those judging me, I hope you never find yourself on the receiving end of such harsh scrutiny. Authenticity, modern love, trust in your partner, why are women supporting women? The post got immediate engagement, dozens of likes and comments within the first hour. Many were supportive, praising my honesty and courage, but others were brutal. Having coffee doesn't take 4 hours in a hotel room. Your poor husband, I feel so sorry for him. This is what's wrong with marriage today. No respect, no boundaries. Girl, you cheated on your wedding night. Own it. I deleted the negative comments as fast as they appeared, but they kept coming. Worse, I noticed that none of Jonas's family members had liked or commented on my post. Neither had several of our mutual friends. That evening, Jonas came home with a manila folder and his laptop. He sat up at our dining room table and started organizing papers, bank statements, receipts, printed emails. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Getting organized." He didn't look up from his work. Organized for what? For whatever comes next. "Jonas, this is ridiculous. Can we please just talk like normal people? I'm your wife." Finally, he looked at me. "Are you? Because wives don't usually disappear on their wedding night to meet other men in hotel rooms. It wasn't like that, and you know it. What was it like, Irene? Explain it to me." I sat down across from him, choosing my words carefully. Luke reached out to congratulate me on the wedding. He was in town for one night and wanted to catch up. We were together for 2 years. We have history. I thought it would be healthy to have closure. Closure that required 4 hours in his hotel room? We were talking about the past, about our lives now, about whether you made the right choice marrying me. The question hung in the air between us, because that was exactly what we talked about, wasn't it? Luke questioning whether I was really happy, whether I was settling for safe instead of passionate. It wasn't like that. Jonas went back to his paperwork. The hotel has security footage of you kissing him in the hallway outside his room. Multiple times. My stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" "Because I asked to see it. Turns out when your wife disappears on your wedding night, hotels are pretty accommodating about sharing their security footage. You're having me surveilled now." "I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." I stared at him. This man I'd married just 4 days ago who suddenly felt like a stranger. "Protecting yourself from what?" "From whatever you're planning to do next." He looked up from his papers. "Because this isn't over, is it? You're not done with him." "That's not true. Your Instagram post says otherwise. All that talk about maintaining friendships with exes and trusting partners. Sounds like you're laying the groundwork for more coffee dates." I was defending myself against unfair criticism. "You were justifying your behavior so you can keep seeing him." The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. I'd been thinking about Luke's offer to grab coffee and talk. I had been missing the way he made me feel, desired and interesting and alive. "I think you should sleep somewhere else tonight," Jonas said, returning to his paperwork. "I need space to think." "This is my home too." "Is it? Because you don't seem particularly interested in being here." I spent that night at Marina's apartment, venting about Jonas's cold treatment and his paranoid documentation of everything I did. Marina poured wine and validated every one of my complaints. "He's trying to control you through fear," she said, "making you feel guilty for having normal human connections. It's psychological manipulation." "Maybe I should just call Luke, have that coffee. If Jonas is going to treat me like I'm cheating anyway, maybe I should stop tiptoeing around his insecurities." "Yes," Marina raised her wine glass. "Live your truth, girl. You only get one life." So I texted Luke. Coffee tomorrow? I could use a friendly face. His response was immediate. Absolutely. Same hotel, 2 p.m. I'm so glad you reached out. See you then. As I hit send, I felt a thrill of defiance mixed with anticipation. Jonas wanted to treat me like the villain. Fine. Maybe it was time to stop apologizing for wanting more than his suffocating idea of marriage. I had no idea that Jonas had already started building a case that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my own life. Thursday's coffee date with Luke felt like an act of rebellion. I chose my outfit carefully, a fitted black dress that showed just enough skin to feel confident, heels that made my legs look endless, makeup applied with the precision of war paint. The hotel bar was nearly empty in the afternoon, creating an intimate atmosphere that felt both thrilling and dangerous. Luke was waiting at the same corner table, looking devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "You look incredible," he said, standing to greet me with a kiss on the cheek that lingered just a moment too long. "How are you holding up with all the social media drama?" "I'm fine," I said, settling into the booth across from him. People love to tear down women who refuse to conform to their narrow expectations. That's exactly what I was thinking when I saw your Instagram post. You're being crucified for having the courage to be authentic. He signaled the bartender for our usual. Wine for me, scotch for him. Your husband should be defending you, not punishing you. Jonas is processing. He's not great with conflict. Or maybe he's showing you who he really is. Some men talk a good game about wanting a strong, independent woman, but when they're actually faced with one, they try to cage her. The observation felt painfully accurate. Jonas had always claimed to love my independence and ambition, but the moment I'd exercised that independence in a way he didn't approve of, he'd turned cold and controlling. "Tell me about your work," Luke said, leaning forward with genuine interest. "I've been following your non-profit online. The literacy program you launched last year is incredible." For the next hour, we talked about my projects, my goals, my vision for expanding our outreach programs. Luke asked thoughtful questions and offered insights from his own consulting experience. He made me feel like my work mattered, like I was making a real difference in the world. "You're wasted in that small organization," he said eventually. "Have you ever thought about going national? I have connections with some major foundations that would be perfect for your kind of programming." "Really? That would be amazing. I could make some introductions. Maybe we could collaborate on a proposal. I'd love an excuse to spend more time with you." The suggestion sent a flutter through my chest. Working with Luke would mean regular meetings, shared projects, legitimate reasons to see each other. It would also mean crossing a line that I wasn't sure I could uncross. "I don't know if that's a good idea, given everything that's happening." "Why should your marriage problems limit your professional opportunities? You can't let Jonas's insecurities hold back your career." He was right, of course. Why should I sacrifice potential partnerships because my husband was being unreasonable about my friendship with an ex? "Let me think about it," I said. "Of course, but don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't wait forever." As we talked, Luke's hand found its way to mine across the table. His thumb traced circles on my palm, sending electricity up my arm. When he suggested we continue our conversation somewhere more private, I knew I should say no. Instead, I found myself following him to the elevator once again. This time, we didn't pretend it was just about talking. The moment his hotel room door closed behind us, we were kissing with the desperate hunger of people who'd been denying their attraction for too long. His hands tangled in my hair, mine clutched at his jacket, and for a moment, nothing existed except the heat between us. "I've missed this," he whispered against my neck. "I've missed you." "Luke, we can't." I know you're married, but God, Irene, the way you make me feel, I've never gotten over you." We spent 2 hours in that hotel room, talking and kissing and touching, carefully avoiding the line that would make this undeniably an affair. But we were dancing so close to that line that the distinction felt meaningless. When I finally left, my lips were swollen, and my hair was messed up, and my dress was wrinkled beyond repair. I felt guilty and exhilarated and terrified all at once. At home, Jonas was in his study with the door closed. I could hear him on the phone, his voice low and serious. When I knocked, he told me he was busy and would talk to me later. I changed clothes and tried to fix my hair, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew exactly where I'd been and what I'd been doing. That night at dinner, he was polite but distant, asking about my day in the tone someone might use with a casual acquaintance. "How was work?" he asked, cutting his chicken with mechanical precision. "Fine, busy. We're planning the fall gala." "That's nice." The conversation died there. We ate in silence, the weight of everything unsaid, pressing down on us like a physical force. After dinner, Jonas returned to his study and closed the door again. I tried watching TV, but I couldn't focus. Finally, I went to bed alone, staring at the ceiling and wondering how my marriage had become this cold, polite dance around the truth. Friday morning brought a new humiliation. Someone had taken photos of me and Luke at the hotel bar the day before and posted them in the same gossip groups that had shared the original video. The caption read, "Update, newlywed spotted with mystery man again, this time holding hands." The photos were grainy but unmistakable. Luke and I leaning close together, his hand covering mine, both of us laughing at something he'd said. We looked intimate, comfortable, like a couple. My phone started buzzing immediately. Texts from co-workers, friends, family members who'd seen the new photos. Most were some variation of, "What are you doing?" and "Are you okay?" Margaret called me into her office first thing. "Irene, I'm going to be direct. The board is concerned about the negative publicity surrounding your personal life. Our donors are asking questions, and frankly, some are threatening to pull their funding. Because I had coffee with a friend, because you've been photographed twice in a week with another man while your husband is nowhere to be seen. It looks bad, and appearance matters in our line of work. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to take some time off, paid leave while this blows over. Let the gossip die down, and then we'll reassess." I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to point out how unfair it was that my personal life was affecting my professional standing. But I could see from Margaret's expression that the decision had already been made. "How long?" 2 weeks, maybe more. We'll see how things go." I cleaned out my desk in a haze of humiliation and anger. 3 years of dedicated work, countless successful events, millions of dollars raised for literacy programs, and it all meant nothing because I'd been photographed holding hands with an ex-boyfriend. At home, I found Jonas in the kitchen making coffee. He looked up when I walked in, taking in my work bag, an early return. "Let me guess," he said. "They put you on leave." "How did you—" "Because I'm not stupid, Irene. I know how this works. Actions have consequences, even when you don't think they should. This is so unfair. I haven't done anything wrong. Haven't you?" He poured coffee into a travel mug and grabbed his keys. "I'll be home late tonight. I have meetings." "What kind of meetings?" "The kind that are necessary when your wife is making a public spectacle of your marriage." He left without another word, and I was alone in our apartment with nothing to do but think about how quickly my life was unraveling. My phone buzzed with a text from Luke. "Saw the photos online. Sorry if they caused problems. Want to talk about it? I'm here for you." I stared at the message for a long time. Talking to Luke had gotten me into this mess, but he was also the only person who seemed to understand what I was going through. Everyone else was judging me, but Luke saw me as a victim of small-minded gossip and an insecure husband. "Yes, I need to see you." "My place this time. I'll send you the address, more private than the hotel." As I typed back my agreement, I told myself I was just seeking comfort from a friend, but deep down, I knew I was crossing a line that would change everything. I just didn't realize that Jonas had already crossed his own line, and that his quiet documentation of my choices was about to become my worst nightmare. Luke's apartment was everything I'd expected: sleek, modern, expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and everything from the furniture to the art on the walls screamed success and sophistication. It was the kind of place I'd dreamed of living in when I was younger, before I'd settled for Jonas's comfortable but modest home. "Welcome to my humble abode," Luke said, taking my coat. "Can I pour you some wine? You look like you've had a rough day." "The worst," I admitted, accepting the glass of expensive Pinot Noir he offered. "They put me on leave from work. Apparently, having coffee with you is grounds for professional suspension." "That's outrageous. You're being punished for refusing to live in a cage." He guided me to his leather couch, sitting close enough that our knees touched. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about Margaret's lecture, about the board's concerns, about the donors threatening to pull funding. I told him about Jonas's cold treatment, his mysterious meetings, his careful documentation of my every move. "He's building a case against you," Luke said, his arm sliding around my shoulders in a gesture that felt both comforting and possessive. "Classic controlling behavior. He's trying to make you feel crazy for wanting normal human connection." Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I should just apologize and try to fix things. For what? For being a complex, interesting woman with a past? For refusing to pretend you've never loved anyone else? His fingers traced patterns on my arm. "You deserve so much better than this, Irene. You deserve someone who celebrates your spirit instead of trying to break it. Like you." The words slipped out before I could stop them, hanging in the air between us like a confession. "Like me," he agreed softly. "I never should have let you go. Biggest mistake of my life." When he kissed me this time, I didn't pull away. I kissed him back with all the frustration and loneliness and desire I'd been suppressing for years. We made out on his couch like teenagers, hands roaming, breathing heavy, teetering on the edge of a decision that would change everything. "Stay the night," he whispered against my neck. "Let me take care of you the way you deserve." I wanted to. God, I wanted to so badly it physically hurt. But some small, rational part of my brain was still functioning. "I can't. Not yet. I need to figure things out with Jonas first." "What's to figure out? He's already decided you're the villain. He's already building his case against you. You don't owe him anything." "I owe him honesty. If I'm going to end my marriage, I should at least have the courage to tell him first." Luke sighed but nodded. "You're right. You're too good for him. But you're right. Just don't let him manipulate you into staying in a marriage that's making you miserable." I left Luke's apartment feeling more conflicted than ever. Part of me wanted to pack my bags and start over with someone who made me feel alive and desired. But another part of me remembered why I'd fallen in love with Jonas in the first place: his kindness, his stability, his unwavering support for my dreams. At home, I found Jonas in his study again, surrounded by papers and files. His laptop was open to what looked like a legal website. "We need to talk," I said from the doorway. "Do we? Because you seem to be doing plenty of talking elsewhere." "Jonas, please, can we try to work this out? I know I've made mistakes, but..." "Mistakes?" He finally looked up at me, and I was shocked by the coldness in his eyes. "Is that what you're calling it?" "I know how it looks, but nothing has happened between Luke and me. We're just friends. Friends who spend hours alone together in hotel rooms and private apartments. Friends who hold hands and kiss in public." My stomach dropped. "How do you know about his apartment?" "Because I had you followed, Irene. Because when your wife starts lying to you, you stop taking her word for things. You had me followed." The violation felt enormous, breathtaking in its scope. "A private investigator, very discreet, very thorough. Would you like to see the photos from this afternoon?" He turned his laptop screen toward me, and I saw myself walking into Luke's building, leaving 3 hours later with messed-up hair and smudged lipstick. The timestamps showed exactly how long I'd been there. You're insane, I whispered. This is stalking. This is protecting myself, because you've made it very clear that I can't trust anything you say. I told you nothing happened. Nothing happened? He clicked to another photo, Luke and me on his couch, clearly kissing, taken through his floor-to-ceiling windows with a telephoto lens. What do you call this? I stared at the image, feeling like I was looking at someone else's life. When had I become this person? When had I become someone who lied to her husband's face while carrying on with another man? Jonas, I can explain. Don't. Please don't insult my intelligence any further. He closed the laptop and stood up. I've already filed for divorce. You'll be served with papers tomorrow. What? You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I'm also filing for full custody of Maya. Maya? She's not even your biological daughter. She's been my daughter for 3 years. I've raised her, supported her, loved her unconditionally, and I won't let her be exposed to whatever this is. He gestured between us. Whatever you've become. You can't take my daughter away from me. Watch me. I have documentation of your affair, evidence of your lies, proof that you're more interested in playing house with your ex-boyfriend than being a mother to your child. I haven't been playing house with anyone. Haven't you? Because according to my investigator, you've spent more time with Luke this week than you have with your own family. You've lied about your whereabouts, snuck around behind my back, and made a public spectacle of our marriage. What kind of mother does that? The accusation hit like a physical blow. Maya was my world, my reason for everything. The idea of losing her was unthinkable. Jonas, please, don't do this. Don't punish Maya because you're angry with me. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting a little girl from watching her mother destroy her family for a man who doesn't even want her. What's that supposed to mean? It means I had Luke investigated too. Did you know he's married? Did you know his wife is pregnant with their second child? Did you know he's done this before? Pursued married women, broken up families, then disappeared when things got too complicated. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. Luke was married, pregnant wife. It couldn't be true. You're lying. Am I? He pulled out a manila folder and handed me a stack of photos. Luke at a suburban house, kissing a very pregnant woman goodbye. Luke at a school pickup line with a little boy who looked exactly like him. Luke at a family barbecue, his arm around his wife, both of them laughing. These were taken last weekend. While he was texting you about being lonely and missing you, he was playing happy family with his actual wife and child. I stared at the photos, feeling like the world was tilting off its axis. Everything Luke had told me, every promise he'd made, every word about regretting letting me go, it was all lies. He told me he wasn't married, I whispered. He told you what you wanted to hear, just like he's told dozens of other women. You're not special to him, Irene. You're just convenient. I sank into the nearest chair, the photos scattered around me like evidence of my own stupidity. How had I been so blind? How had I thrown away my marriage for a man who was lying about everything? Jonas, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought... You thought what? That he was going to leave his pregnant wife for you? That you were going to run away together and live happily ever after? His voice was bitter, tired. You thought you could have your cake and eat it too. Keep me as your safe backup while you explored your options with him. That's not true. Isn't it? Because that's exactly what you've been doing. Lying to me, sneaking around with him, and keeping me on the hook just in case things didn't work out with your great love. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain that it hadn't been calculated like that. But looking at the evidence spread around me, the photos, the timestamps, the careful documentation of my lies, I realized that's exactly what I'd been doing. The divorce papers will be served tomorrow, Jonas said, gathering up the photos. I suggest you find a lawyer, and somewhere else to stay. I want you out of this house by Sunday. Jonas, please, let's talk about this. Let me make it right. There is no making this right. You made your choice. Now you get to live with the consequences. He walked out of the study, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my marriage and the crushing realization that I'd destroyed everything for a man who'd been lying to me from the beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from Luke. "Missing you already. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow." I stared at the message, remembering his pregnant wife, his secret family, his practiced lies. Then I blocked his number and deleted every photo, every message, every trace of the fantasy I'd been living. But it was too late. The damage was done, and Jonas was right. I was going to have to live with the consequences. The divorce papers arrived Friday morning, delivered by a stern-faced man in a cheap suit who asked for my ID before handing me the manila envelope. My hands shook as I read through the legal language that reduced our marriage to a list of assets and accusations. Jonas wasn't just divorcing me, he was destroying me. The petition included detailed documentation of my affair, complete with photos, timestamps, and witness statements. He was seeking full custody of Maya, citing my adultery, abandonment of family responsibilities, and unstable lifestyle choices as grounds for supervised visitation only. But the worst part was the financial claim. Jonas was demanding that I repay the money I'd spent on Luke, expensive dinners charged to our joint credit card, the hotel bar tabs, even the Uber rides to his apartment. Every transaction was itemized, categorized, and presented as evidence of my betrayal. I called the lawyer Marina had recommended, but his consultation fee alone was more than I had in my personal account. Without my job, without access to our joint accounts, I was financially powerless. The good news is that adultery doesn't affect property division in this state, the lawyer explained during our brief phone conversation. The bad news is that the custody situation is complicated. If he can prove you've been neglecting your daughter's welfare in favor of your affair, a judge might agree to his terms temporarily. I haven't been neglecting Maya. Have you been present for her bedtime routine this week? Have you helped with homework? Have you attended any school functions? I tried to remember. Between my meetings with Luke and the drama at work, had I been paying attention to Maya's needs? The honest answer was no. I'd been so caught up in my own desires that I'd barely seen my daughter all week. "I need to think about this," I said, ending the call. But there wasn't time to think. Jonas had given me until Sunday to move out, and it was already Friday afternoon. I called Marina to see if I could crash on her couch, but she was leaving town for a work conference. "Can't you stay in a hotel for a few days?" she suggested. "Just until you figure things out." With what money? They suspended me from work and Jonas froze our accounts. What about your mum? The idea of crawling home to my mother and explaining how I'd destroyed my marriage was humiliating, but I was running out of options. Saturday morning, I packed 2 suitcases with clothes and personal items, leaving behind the life I'd built with Jonas. Maya was at a sleepover, which meant I didn't have to explain why Mommy was leaving with suitcases. As I loaded my car, I noticed Jonas watching from the kitchen window. He didn't come out to help or to say goodbye. He just watched, his expression unreadable. My mother's house felt like a time capsule from my teenage years. The same floral wallpaper, the same family photos, the same disappointed expression on her face when she opened the door. "Oh, honey," she said, taking in my suitcases and red-rimmed eyes. "Come in, tell me everything." So I did. I told her about Luke's lies, about the private investigator, about the divorce papers and custody battle. I told her about losing my job and my home and possibly my daughter. "I don't understand," she said when I finished. "Why would you risk everything for a man you dated years ago?" I thought I loved him. I thought he loved me. I thought I was missing something in my marriage. And were you? Missing something? I considered the question honestly. I was missing excitement, passion, the feeling of being desired instead of just comfortable. And was it worth it? The excitement? I thought about Luke's pregnant wife, about Maya asking why Mommy wasn't home for bedtime stories, about Jonas's cold eyes when he told me our marriage was over. No, I whispered. It wasn't worth any of this. Monday brought a new humiliation. Someone had leaked the details of my divorce petition to the local gossip blogs. The headline read, "Non-profit coordinator's wedding night affair leads to messy divorce and custody battle." The article included excerpts from the legal documents describing my pattern of deceptive behavior and abandonment of parental duties. It painted me as a selfish woman who'd thrown away a good marriage for a meaningless fling. The comments section was brutal. "This woman is disgusting. Who cheats on their wedding night? Poor husband. Hope he gets full custody. She deserves everything she gets. What kind of mother chooses a man over her own child?" I tried calling Maya, but Jonas's mother answered his phone. "Irene, dear, I don't think it's appropriate for you to speak with Maya right now. She's very confused and upset." "She's my daughter. I have a right to talk to her." "According to the custody order, you have supervised visitation rights only. Until the judge makes a final determination, Jonas has full physical custody." "What custody order? We haven't been to court yet." "The emergency order. Jonas filed it Monday morning, citing immediate danger to Maya's well-being. The judge granted it temporarily." The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the kitchen floor. Jonas had gotten an emergency custody order without me even knowing about it. Maya was gone, legally and completely, until I could prove I deserved to see my own daughter. Wednesday brought the final blow. I was having coffee with my mother when her phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. Someone had tagged her in a post. "Oh no," she whispered, staring at her screen. "What?" She turned the phone toward me, and I saw a video that made my blood run cold. It was security footage from Luke's apartment building, showing me entering and leaving multiple times over the past 2 weeks. But this wasn't the grainy, distant footage I'd seen before. This was crystal clear, high-definition video that showed every detail. My face, my clothes, the guilty way I looked around before entering the building. The timestamps proved I'd been there for hours at a time, on multiple occasions, including the day after my wedding. The caption read, "Full security footage from Meridian Towers. Draw your own conclusions about what was happening during these visits." Who would release this? I asked, but even as I said it, I knew the answer. Jonas. This was his final move, his way of ensuring that everyone knew exactly what kind of person I was. Not just his private investigators' photos, but official security footage that couldn't be disputed or explained away. My phone started buzzing immediately. Reporters from local news stations, bloggers who covered social media scandals, former co-workers who wanted to distance themselves from the controversy. I turned off my phone and went to bed, pulling the covers over my head like I could hide from what my life had become. Thursday morning, my mother shook me awake. "Honey, you need to see this. It's about Luke." She handed me her tablet, open to a news article. "Local consultant arrested for fraud. Wife files for divorce citing pattern of infidelity." The article detailed how Luke's consulting business was actually a front for an investment scam. He'd been targeting wealthy women, seducing them, gaining their trust, and then convincing them to invest in fake projects. His pregnant wife had filed for divorce and a restraining order, claiming he'd been running this con for years. Police believe there may be dozens of victims, the article continued. Brandt specifically targeted married women, using their emotional vulnerability to manipulate them into both affairs and financial fraud. I stared at the article, feeling like I was reading about a stranger. The man I'd thought I loved, the man I'd destroyed my marriage for, was a professional con artist who'd targeted me specifically because I was married and vulnerable. "How many others were there?" I whispered. "According to this, at least 15 women over the past 5 years, all married, all successful, all convinced they were his one true love." I'd been a mark, a target, a carefully chosen victim in an elaborate con game. Luke had never loved me. He'd studied me, identified my weaknesses, and exploited them with surgical precision. Friday morning brought the final humiliation. I was supposed to appear in court for the custody hearing, but when I arrived at the courthouse, I found a crowd of reporters waiting. Ms. Vellum, do you have any comment about your involvement with Luke Brandt? Were you aware of his criminal activities? Do you think you're fit to have custody of your daughter? I pushed through the crowd, trying to reach the courthouse steps, but the questions kept coming. Cameras flashed in my face, microphones were shoved toward me, and I felt like an animal being hunted. That's when I saw Jonas. He was standing at the top of the courthouse steps with his lawyer, watching the media circus with a calm expression. When our eyes met, he didn't look angry or vindictive. He looked tired, sad, like he was watching the final scene of a tragedy he'd tried to prevent. "Jonas," I called out, pushing through the reporters. "Jonas, please, we need to talk." But he turned and walked into the courthouse without acknowledging me. His lawyer handed me a thick envelope before following him inside. I opened it with shaking hands and found a settlement offer. Jonas was willing to give me joint custody of Maya and half of our assets if I agreed to attend counseling and stayed away from him for 6 months. It was more generous than I deserved, more compassionate than I'd expected. But it also meant admitting that I'd destroyed our marriage for a criminal who'd been using me from the beginning. It meant accepting that I'd lost the best man I'd ever known because I'd been too selfish and stupid to appreciate what I had. I signed the papers right there on the courthouse steps, surrounded by reporters who captured every moment of my humiliation. The photos would be online within hours, me crying as I signed away my marriage, looking exactly like the foolish woman who'd thrown away everything for a lie. As I walked back to my car, dodging questions and cameras, I thought about the Instagram post I'd written just 2 weeks ago. All that talk about authenticity and modern love and trusting your partner. All those words about being a complex, independent woman who refused to be caged. I'd been so convinced that I was the heroine of my own story, fighting against outdated expectations and small-minded judgment. But the truth was simpler and more devastating. I was just another married woman who'd fallen for a con man's lies and destroyed her family in the process. Jonas had tried to warn me with his silence, his documentation, his careful preparation for the inevitable end. He'd known what I was too blind to see, that Luke was using me, that our marriage was worth fighting for, that my choices would have consequences I couldn't imagine. But I'd been too intoxicated by the fantasy of forbidden love to listen to reason. Too convinced of my own righteousness to consider that I might be wrong. Now, sitting in my car outside the courthouse while reporters knocked on my windows, I finally understood what Jonas had been trying to tell me all along. Actions have consequences, and some mistakes can't be undone. I'd told myself it was just a quick talk, like I could sneak a past life into our first night as husband and wife.